Hello, welcome, good morning. As you just said, my name is Sivan. I'll be over, yeah, I can click through, thank you. And I am mostly just gonna start with a little introduction of who I am and what I do. And why I think maybe I was reached out to talk about this word soft. I am a co-owner of a local yarn store. We actually just opened this year, so we're still very new. It hasn't even been a full year yet. We are called Unwind GR. So it's me and my partner, May McCalman, who just got married over the weekend and is on her honeymoon. So congratulations, May. So just a little bit about like what we do at the yarn store and kind of why we created Unwind. I'm also going to give a little backstory of like how May and I started and put this together. So I am a former art teacher for Grand Rapids Public Schools. I met May as she was student teaching with one of my colleagues, and then she also worked for Grand Rapids Public Schools as well for a few years, and I was there for about 7 years. We were in a Zoom meeting during COVID while May was student teaching and I was knitting in my Zoom meeting, and she like private messages me and she's like, "What are you knitting? What are you doing?" And that's kind of how we got connected together as knitters and fiber artists. And then we got started with this because I went to a friend's house party and I overheard her talking to her, like a small group of friends who, and she was like, "We don't have a yarn store in Grand Rapids." She's like, "I think I might want to start a yarn store in Grand Rapids." And that had already been part of my 5-year plan. I really wanted to start a yarn store because we don't have one here in Grand Rapids. We didn't have one here in Grand Rapids. And it was really something that we were missing in our community. And I literally swooped in and I was like, "Can we talk more about this?" And that's really how Unwind came to be. And once we really sat down and started to put it together, we really like went quick with it. We started maybe last year in August, and we opened at the end of January. So it's been a crazy whirlwind, but it feels like it's really been widely received well. People really love having us in the community. The people who've come in have been very, very supportive. And most of our classes have been full, especially our intro level classes, but it's been a lot of fun. A big thing of what we want to do, part of our mission, is to have this space for knitters, crocheters, and fiber artists and other kinds of crafters to come and feel like they have a home. We want to be a hub for the fiber arts. And so we do that in a lot of different ways. We do that with our community nights every Monday. We call it Knit Faced. We're getting Knit Faced every Monday night. Thank you. And then we also offer a wide variety of classes and opportunities for people to come and learn new skills that maybe they're having trouble learning at home. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about all of this kind of stuff in a second. I'm also going to give just a little bit more information about myself as a fiber artist. So I, like I said, was an art teacher for about 7 years with GRPS. I also now work at the Public Museum as an educator, and I've been there for about 3 years, and I see lots of my colleagues here today, so thank you all. But I have been using knitting and crochet as my art medium, and I would talk about this with my students too. So kind of creating a practice. So I'm not just making clothes or houseware items, but I'm making lots of tapestries, and I'm putting a lot of color work into my work as well. And I really have loved being able to express myself through yarn, which I think is not something that people can think that they can do, but like yarn is actually very graphic, knitting is very graphic, crochet is very graphic, and all of these things start from a chart, a grid, and then I'm able to put that together into making my physical object. But it's just a lot, like I really truly enjoy, like my favorite thing to do is to sit down and to knit and to crochet and to just be using my hands. So that's just a little bit about my art practice there. I actually, I kind of struggled putting this whole thing together because I was really thinking about this word soft. And the first thing that came to me was kind of like, I got defensive. It's kind of like, how dare you think that I'm soft and what I do is soft? But that is kind of part of my identity. I have these like softer careers as a teacher and as a fiber artist. They are perceived as soft. So I was really trying to think of what this word means. And these are some words that I came up with and what I think most people think of when they are thinking of this word soft, as well as some images of, sheep are very soft and cute and cuddly. And sheep is where our yarn comes from. And yarn can be soft, it's not always, but yarn can be very soft. And these are just some images I think maybe come to mind. And then I think of what other people might think of when they're thinking of fiber arts and when they're thinking of knitting and when they're thinking of crochet. And these are images that came to my mind. I think also I've seen a lot in media, people kind of like, I saw like a Good Morning America segment about grandma core and this kind of return to knitting and crochet, and it's almost like a lot of people were actually really upset about this segment that came out because it's almost like devaluing knitting and crochet into a trend, and people are only doing it because it's just a trendy thing that's happening right now. And then I also think about like, why is knitting and crochet and fiber arts in general associated with an older generation? Why don't we see or like associate it with modern day every people of all ages, kids to older generations as well? And I think that has a lot to do with kind of the way that our relationship with clothing and with home goods nowadays. And I think these are skills that we don't necessarily need as much as maybe people needed in the past. So I think that is a big reason why it's associated with an older generation, is that that stuff wasn't as readily available as it is today. You couldn't just go to Home Goods and get what looks like a crocheted blanket. Or you couldn't just buy a sweater from the store. Not that there is also reasons why you would want to go buy something from the store versus making it yourself, but it's just not as much of a necessity anymore. The other thing that I think about too is the time that it takes to make these things. I think we live in a society that really values time spent on things. I get that question to me a lot, like how long did that sweater take you? How long does this project take you? How long did that take you? And I'm gonna be honest, I don't count. I don't care how long it takes me because I enjoy doing it. That is really the big reason why I'm here, is because I enjoy knitting. It's one of, like, as I said, one of my favorite things to do. And a lot of people think of knitting as like, oh, you're just sitting down and knitting, almost used as like an insult sometimes. I hear it in media and in TV shows and movies. I've heard it used as like an insult, like, oh, I'm just like sitting and knitting a sweater. Yeah, that is actually what I'm doing. So I think with that, that's kind of like the scariness of being perceived as soft, because I think a lot of people see that as maybe almost more of a weakness of like, you're not doing enough, but you're actually doing so much. And what's really cool about like if you're knitting something for someone else, it's a very slow process. You are touching and working with every single stitch And there's so much intention behind what you're making, especially if you're giving it to someone else. I know a lot of knitters and crocheters who do not make things for someone else because they're like, I spent so much time on this, I want to keep it for myself, and that's totally valid too. But if you are someone who's ever gotten a handmade gift from a knitter or crocheter, that's actually incredibly special because they have touched every single part of that piece. Now, when I think of knitting and crochet, it's not quite so pretty. This is what I see, especially when I'm doing a lot of stuff with colors, color work, because each different color is a different strand of yarn. I am usually working with a very big knot until I can finally figure out how to put it together and I get like the beautiful end product. But this is really what I think knitting looks like. It's not so like put together and clean and relaxing. I think that's a misconception that people think knitting and crochet is relaxing. It can be once you get really good at it, but most of the time when people are coming in for classes, they're like really tense and really stressed out. And they're like, I thought this was supposed to be relaxing. And I'm like, it will get there. Just keep trying and keep practicing. So let me look at my notes here for a second. I also believe, and as an art teacher and teacher in general, I believe that people really love to make things. I think because of this kind of disconnect that we have from the process of making our home goods, our clothes, and our housewares, there's been this, that's the grandma core trend, is like just coming back to making stuff again, just being a part of that process. We like to be in the process of our objects. And I know that it's oftentimes like considered like a craft, like, oh, kids like to make things, but everybody likes to make things. We love to work with our hands. It's also really good for your brain. There's lots of studies that have come out that knitting and crochet are really helpful with keeping, as we get older, keeping your brain active and working and fighting some of those things like Alzheimer's and dementia, because we're doing a lot of these repetitive movements with our hands and we're crossing the midline. So all of that is really good in keeping our brain healthy. But yeah, we are, I think as human beings, just love to make things. So I was gonna kind of say, like, when I think of the word soft, those words that I came up with in the beginning, kind of like gentle, warm, inviting, relaxing. I can't really say that I think of those things when I'm actually actively knitting, but I do think of those things when it comes to our community. I think our community has been an incredibly positive thing that has really come out of our store here, which is what May and I truly wanted when we started this. We knew that we were missing this in our community. So this has been probably my favorite part of being kind of like this hub. And we actually have a living room space in our store. It's available for anyone to come in at any time we're open to sit down and knit and hang out. You can bring your friends and also work together, or you could come during our open craft night, Knit Feast. It's every Monday from 6 to 9, unless something else is going on for some reason that we'd be closed on a Monday. But it is really special and cool to see the community that we started to create. This was just last Monday. This is probably, this picture at the top here is what our store looks like on most Mondays. We get anywhere from 15 to 20 people on average. We do have some regulars, people who come back week after week, and then we also get new friends and new faces every week. And it's really nice to see our community grow like this. And people just want a space to be able to learn from each other. And it's also so fun to see someone working on a project and then be wearing it when they finish it and coming in the next week. And everyone's cheering and everyone's so excited. We have a very positive community. And I truly believe that this is what softness is. This is our community, is what like all of these warm, I had like a bunch of words written down here. I'm forgetting them right now. But another word and another thing that I think is really the, like a really good soft skill that I think will bring people to success in knitting and crochet is patience. I think people really need to really practice patience when it comes to these kinds of skills, because these are fine motor skills, especially if you're learning as an adult. These are new fine motor skills, and that's really hard to do, to learn as an adult. So, and I think we have a lot of patience with each other in our community. I know as a teacher, I had to have a lot of patience for my students and for the people around me, because we can't be hard all the time. We kind of have to have that softness within us in order to be successful. So the other thing that comes to me, and I know that this has already been said a lot, but like there's so much strength in softness. And there's a lot of strength in remaining soft, especially in a society that doesn't always perceive it as a positive, or in a society that, really values the time we spend on things, and being able to still say, I love to just sit down and knit, and that's my favorite thing to do, I think there's strength to that, because I even get a little bit of like, you're just knitting? Like, yeah, I'm making something. I'm taking my time. So yeah, that's kind of my take on soft. What we are going to do, if you didn't grab a ball of yarn, we are going to learn a little bit about knitting. So really kind of the physics of knitting is you have interconnected loops that then create a piece of fabric. So we're taking the yarn and we're making a piece of fabric. In these yarn balls, many of them have two, or three strands put together. So just make sure you have all of those strands. What we are going to be making is some, and you can choose not to make this if you'd like to, but little finger knit butterflies, which is like a little no-sew project, no materials needed at all, because we're going to be using our hands for all of it. So I'll probably have to put the mic down, but I'm going to be showing you how to get started and how to make these little butterflies, but most of it's going to be doing the finger knitting part. That's going to be take the longest. So with that, I'll just use my teacher voice. I'll project.
You want me to hold the mic?
No, I got it. I can project. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your strand. You can pull from the center if you can find that pull center, or you can pull from the outside. If you get a big mess, it's okay. You're going to use up all that yarn anyways. To get started with finger knitting, we are going to start with, if you're right-handed, your yarn should be in your left hand. If you're left-handed, your yarn's going to go into your right hand. So I'm right-handed, so my yarn is going on my left hand. And I'm going to pinch it in between my finger and my thumb, and then I'm going to weave it around my 4 fingers. So it's going to look something like this. And then I'm going to weave it back. So I'm going to wrap it around my pinky and weave it back around. And I should have 1 loop so far on each finger. When we're starting, we're going to need 2 loops. So we're going to do that process again. We're going to wrap it around our fingers 1 more time, back and forth. So now you should have 2 loops on each finger. So it should look something like this. If anyone is struggling with this part, I can come around and help. And then the knitting part of finger knitting is you're going to take the loop that is on the bottom. There we go, okay. Take the loop that is on the bottom and carry it over and off your finger on the top. And you're going to do that with all 4 fingers. So take the loop on the bottom, carry it over the top here. That I did use that yarn earlier. It is a little, because it doesn't have a lot of stretch to it, so you just might need to keep it towards the tips of your fingers a little bit, or try to keep those loops looser. But you got it. And then I can kind of take my tail end and pull it a little bit, give it a little bit of tug. We have 1 row done in our finger knitting. And then this is the part that's going to be repetitive. We're going to then loop around our fingers again, forward and back, and that should give you those 2 loops. So it should look something like this, and then you just keep looping off your finger. I'll come around and help anyone who might be struggling getting started once we get started here. Okay. But that's pretty much the process. So take your time, talk about it with your friends. We're going to be doing this until we have about an arm's length of fabric. Okay. So, yes. So now you have to go back around, and we have to do it again. You might want to move those a little bit.
Oh, I just was like, I have rings, and
yeah, you can. I mean, it can get in the way a little bit, but.
So then, okay.
Yes. So it should look like that. That's it. Nope, that's it, because you have 2 on each now.
Okay.
So you're going to take the bottom one and carry it over the top.
Okay.
Yep. And do that on all 4 of them.
Uh-huh. Off my finger.
Yes. And then if you're right-handed, I have it in my left hand. The yarn is in my left hand because my right hand is doing all the the dexterity.
Okay.
So that's why I have it in so my right hand is free to do what it needs to do.
So is it 2 times across, or is it 3?
For the first row,
Okay.
you're gonna go around. So that's kind of like 1 round. So you see how you have 1 loop now? You have to do it again. Go around this finger first. Okay. So for your finger knitting, I see most people are definitely kind of on the right track, and I can still come and help if I'm seeing that you're struggling a little bit more. We are going to continue finger knitting until you have about an arm's length, and when I say an arm's length, I actually mean from your hand up to your shoulder, which most of you are getting really close. And then I can show you how to bind it off. Once you run out of yarn, are you gonna redo it?
I was gonna shorten it.
Okay. I'll let you do what you're doing. And I figured we could probably do the Q&A while we are finger knitting. And then I'll show you how to put it together to make the butterfly.
So if anyone has a question, go ahead, raise your hand. I'll walk a mic over and you can ask a question directly to the spot. Are there any questions, or does everyone need all hands?
Hi, I'm really curious about that program you were using to with the grid. What's that called?
So I use a program. It has like a free trial online. It's called Stitch Fiddle. A lot of knitting and crochet programs are very grassroots. I think I pay maybe $30 for the year to use it. It's called Stitch Fiddle, and what you can do is you can draw a grid. You could draw directly on a grid, or you can import a photo and then you can edit your grid from there. So that's what I've done for most of my my knitting and crochet projects that I'm using a grid for. I will import a photo, and then I have to do a lot of editing to it, so there's a lot of graphic work to it as well. Also thinking about when you import a photo, it's going to give you 20 colors, and I don't want to use 20 colors. I want to use usually at most 5. So, yeah.
And then as you're knitting, you're tracking what row you're.
Yes, you can kind of see that in this photo here.
You can't just mindlessly knit.
Not when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not really relaxing. I'm actually thinking about everything all the time. So yes, working on this fish crochet here, you can see my chart. The Stitch Fiddle also has a progress tracker, which is really nice. So it highlights the line that you're working on, and then you can just click up or down depending on which direction you're working. And I just work myself across back and forth. Yeah.
I think we have time for 2 more questions, so we're going to do these 2 right here that I just saw.
My question is just about how do you think about the yarn that you bring into the store? Do you have any either yarn that you won't bring? Is it all sheep? I'm just curious about the product that's in the store.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with the products that we sell, we try to have a wide range of things in prices. So we have things that are maybe considered more low end and things that are more high end. Our cheapest ball of yarn is probably around $30-something, and our most expensive is around $50. And that has a lot to do with the fibers that are in it. And I feel like people often ask us what's the difference between Joann's and us? And I'd say the biggest difference between, other than that we're in business, Michael's, And when I say Joann's, I really just mean big box hobby stores. But the biggest difference is that the content of our yarn. Most of our yarn is going to be not synthetic, it's going to be natural fiber, so either cotton, wool, alpaca, cashmere, and things like that. Usually, with less of the synthetic fibers included, so less polyamides, less acrylics. We do have some of those because that is sometimes a necessity for people who have different maybe allergies to wools and things like that. So we try to have a wide range of that, but we really are going to have mostly natural fibers and less synthetic fibers, or blends of both. Yeah?
I know I asked you a question
Yeah.
back here, but I have a different question.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about how you scaled this from an idea and passion to an actual turning the lights on business? Bootstrap, our own family. How did that process go?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I had the thought maybe a couple years ago that I wanted to make knitting into my career, and I was like, how do I do that? And I really felt like one of the only ways to do that successfully was to create a local yarn store. However, in Grand Rapids specifically, lots of local yarn stores have not really stayed in business for a very long period of time, so we understand that there's always a risk there. Both May and I are incredibly lucky that we could self-fund this project, and we did a lot of work ourselves. It's completely we don't really hire out. We don't have employees. It's just the two of us. So we are incredibly lucky in that, and we are making enough business to sustain ourselves right now, which is also really great, especially in the first year. So yeah, good question. You did have another question earlier. Do you want to?
Yeah, who first introduced you to yarn?
Yeah, so I started knitting when I was 12. I learned to knit from a book for a school project. I was in home economics class in middle school, and the project was either to cook a dish and write a paper about it, or make something. And I didn't have to write a paper about it. So it was either you could knit something, you could crochet something, you could sew something. And I was like, oh, I have this knitting book that I'm sure my mom got me at some point, because I've always been a kind of kid who liked to work with my hands. So I just made a little envelope wallet, which is actually very skilled for a first project, because I'm doing knit stitches, I'm doing purl stitches, and I was decreasing, and I put on a button. And I got a C on that project because my teacher said it was a little wonky. And it was a little wonky, but that is what got me into knitting. I didn't really pick it up as a true hobby until I was more in college, and I started. My roommate in college actually tells me she remembers me during finals week sitting down and making my first pair of mittens instead of studying, which also sounds like something I would do. I also procrastinated this presentation because I wanted to be knitting. So yeah.
All right, we are getting really, really close to 10, so if people have to step out for any meetings or for work, just giving you a fair notice that it is almost 10. We still have to wrap up this craft,
Yep.
so we are not pushing anyone out by any means, more or less just kind of letting you know. On the back table, there are also some flyers that have been moved there while the talk is going on. One is for Weekend for Good. If you're a designer, a writer, a content creator, any sort like that, they are looking for volunteers for a weekend in November. I believe the second week of November, where you do a full weekend of kind of just donating your time to a nonprofit, working on giant creative teams. Sign up on the flyers back that way. I believe the last day of sign up is today. So if you get one of those flyers, email it right away. Don't procrastinate like we all like to do. There's also some flyers from the Gram. The Gram has a lot of stuff coming up this winter, and are going to be putting out a little bit more programming, and so we have a flyer covering all of the stuff that they're doing over there as well. There's a poster sale happening for the archives. If you have a chance, I don't have the address on me,
Van Dis Studio.
Van Dis Studio.
Yeah, Dean Van Dis' studio. I think it's over in Midtown-ish. It's like Converse.
Okay, so people are everywhere. Ask around if you want to go to the poster sale. Somebody has the info. It is also on Facebook. Anyone else? You got pointers that are clearly didn't know?
It's that way.
It's over here. Jack says it's this way. Awesome. So those are a few things that are going on. Please try to come to more creative events. They're really fun once you're there. I promise. They're a lot of people are dedicating a lot of time to go or to put them on. So when you go, it makes their day. I can promise you that. All right. So we're going to continue that. I'm going to let Sivan take over after this. But a big thank you again to Cakehead. A big thank you to Last Mile. A big thank you to Cakehead. And a huge thank you to Sivan for teaching us a trip. And I'm really glad I didn't have to participate in that. It's very tough.
Okay, so if you're getting to the end or you're kind of like this is at arm's length and I want to stop, you'll cut the yarn and you'll have a tail end. Keep it a little bit longer because you're going to tie some knots with it. And to get it off your fingers and secure, you're just going to take that tail end and you're going to pull it through each loop on your finger. And as you do so, you can take it off your fingers. We have scissors in the front and in the back if anyone is needing to do that. So now I'm going to pull it through my last loop and pull it tight. Or you could just keep working until you get to the end of your ball, and then you might have a really long butterfly. I was having a hard time gauging how much yarn this would use. Okay, so once you get it off your fingers, you're going to tie it in a loop. So just make a double knot with your two tail ends, something like this. And then we need to make the section that's going to be the wings of our butterfly. You could just do it in the middle so that it creates like a figure 8, or you could have a little bit bigger on the top and a little bit smaller on the bottom. But I'm going to pinch it where I want that loop to be, and then I'm just going to wrap it around and do another knot. So it should look something like this. And then I'm going to pinch it again, this time condensing the whole figure 8 here. So I'm pinching this side down and this side together in the center, and you can start to see the wings of the butterfly take shape. And then I'll take one of my tails and I'm going to wrap it all the way around, and I'm going to have my other tail meet it at the top, and that will be the body, and I'm going to double knot this together. And I want that knot to be towards the top of my butterfly, but if it's not that big of a deal. And it should look something like, mine's a little wonky because I'm doing it not flat on the table, but something like this. You can leave the tails long, you can cut them short, completely up to you. On one of my examples, I had 3 and I braided them together. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So now
So you can try to figure out like how to get, you could even like maybe weave it up or like stick it up to the top, and you can make a loop and have it.